It's time to once again look at the brother of Bitcoin, that being Ethereum, and what essentially it is doing versus Bitcoin, and also, of course, versus the US dollar as well. More of a long-term look here. Anyways, other than that, I want to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. Major shout out to Mr. Krown from the UK, who I met yesterday at TK MMA Fit here in Dubai. Really cool dude, really cool times, and it's just amazing, like the kind of people that you meet from doing something like this, and all the stories that they have. It's just like they tell you all the good things. It's amazing. Anyways, let's just jump right on here into our first chart. We're going to start off with a little bit more of an easier analysis because Ethereum Bitcoin is certainly the more easy chart as of right now, although there are certainly some indications as to the direction of Ethereum USD. This one is a lot more clear, and as we've been looking at for the past few months, or actually not few months, this is going back to really March, April region when we started to see this one break down and put in this weekly lower high and this weekly lower low right here that I've circled off, of which that set in the silver cross to the downside, thus confirming the rejection from the major macro long-term breakdown region of July 2018. And of course, this was the indication that things were going to very likely accelerate to the downside, as we did see these moving averages start to really diverge from each other and price action slowly but surely kind of stepping down here. Now, to be fair, this whole move has been rather controlled. Like there hasn't really been any major massive blowout move just yet. It does look like it's slowly getting there, to be fair, but ultimately this has been very controlled thus far. So I don't believe that we've seen the low just yet. In fact, I still do look at this area over here as the likely area for at least a bounce, maybe reversal. I think that's kind of best case scenario in the mid 5.5 million Satoshi region, which it does look like it probably makes a nice move towards, you know, I say relatively soon, but relatively soon is probably within the context of a weekly time frame like this, you know, maybe like a month or two out. So fair enough, right? Can take some time. Anyways, within this region right here, I would be looking at a likely bounce, maybe even a reversal. We can see as I restart my video once again, as the food has arrived this morning, that the weekly RSI is starting to dip its toesy woesy. It's officially into the bearish control zone for the first time then that we did see since basically May of 2022. So more than a year ago, of course, coming in on this move over here. Price action, obviously just kind of waiting in that region as of right now. Weekly jewel continuing with the downside momentum as well. And this is all within the context of the lowest weekly volatilities, which is kind of what we see across the board here. So in this case, you know, I'd still be looking at this one to continue on with this downside move, probably into this next month, maybe even a couple months, meaning that whichever direction that Ethereum goes or Bitcoin goes in this matter versus US dollar, it's very likely going to lose ground relative to Bitcoin. So I don't think that this one's over just yet. Again, potential reversal here, but personally speaking, I don't think that's actually very likely. Do I have a major fib on here? Yeah, you know, this would be still a rather reasonable retracement at the 382 fib here, which is where we did see that bottom come in at June 2022 and July, July of 2022. Almost never do I ever see double bottoms that come like this, and realistically, I don't really see double bottoms or double tops work out over the long term. Yeah, they do provide the impetus for a bounce or a pullback, but usually not long term. I mean, you don't really get very rarely do you get two chances to sell the ties, nor do you get two chances to buy the lows, like this at least. So while I would be looking for a bounce here, I think it's more likely to, over time, move its way down to the 50% retracement, and if things get really crazy, the 618 all the way down here. So that's still the long-term look on this one, but that can take a very long-term time. You know, as I've been saying, this one, you know, realistically looking to play out over the next year, maybe year and a half. I mean, these things can take time. Again, monthly showing the same sort of region in that mid 5 million Satoshi area as a likely bounce area. Again, not the same thing as reversal, but at least a bounce there. And then we get to play the game of, you know, does this bounce reclaim any one of the critical regions? Basically, 6.5 million Satoshis is what I'd be saying as of right now. Same thing with the quarterly as well. We can see the yellow 21 coming in right around that region. Again, all situated within that mid 5.5 million Satoshi region. Also, the monthly stochastic oscillator coming into the month of October continued to the downside. Again, we identified this as a head and shoulders over here, which funnily enough works out on momentum oscillators a lot better than it does on price action in my experience. And now officially heading all the way down to the edge of the bearish critical zone. Remains with downside momentum as long as Ethereum Bitcoin's closing below basically 6.9 million Satoshis. So that's quite far away from current price action, not 5.9, but 6.9, very, very far away. Again, within the context of the lowest volatility this one's really ever seen ever. Kind of hard to really judge that on a monthly though. But what I would say is that, I do think that it's in for a relatively nice bounce once it gets somewhere down to that mid 5.5. The reason why I do say that is because the weekly stochastic oscillator, it's way down here in the critical zone, kind of the same area that we did see on these bounces over here. I'll just kind of highlight them out so that we can see, or let's just move this one over here. Boom, easy. Okay, and see if these do correlate with nice bounces. And kind of, this more recent one was very weak. This one over here, very, very good. But yeah, fair enough. But yeah, still in the short term, more likely to move to the downside than not. 5-day time frame, same thing, going to be showing, extremely critical reads here, like actually one of the lowest reads that we've ever seen, except for November 2020, which is rather severe, you might say. So again, it's very likely to have a nice bounce within that region, but I wouldn't say that bounce is going to be reversal. I do lean towards more downside on this one over the long period of time, just to put my own views on it. Not that I should really be doing that. Anyways, now that we've gone through that, we can go into Ethereum USD. I think the best chart to go over this one right now is actually the daily HPDR ranges, which I do think is getting things incredibly well right here. So what we're looking at is essentially the current 50% of historic returns range. Right now it's playing between the average of the range and the low side of the range. And I do expect that we probably see this one pull back down somewhere around the low side of this range, maybe to all the way down there, but playing within the lower bounds of this, basically anywhere between 1550 and, like 1580-ish region. This weekend has been kind of fraught with like geopolitical perils as well, hasn't it? So, the classic play would be that on Monday, Tuesday, we see markets get slammed as, real markets open back up for the trading week, and people panic due to the situations going on in the Middle East. And then after that, probably bounces. So here's a thing, and this is why I do say that this chart is less obvious than the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. That one very likely goes down no matter what Ethereum versus the dollar does. Over here, though, if we go to Ethereum versus the dollar, we can see, a clear and obvious rejection for the last week. I don't think that that's like a death sentence. I do think that it does play back down, like I said, to the bottom side of this region right here. But long term, it still does have these macro higher lows. Again, I'm not a humongous fan of patterns. But I am a humongous fan of trends, and in this case, there's a low, and this could potentially be your next major, maybe even macro low within that long-term context. But it would imply that we see Ethereum, do something like this on the LARP lines. Like we really wouldn't want to see it close below. Especially 1565. Like you can get wicks down there. Like I said, wicks down to 1550 is fine. But generally we want to, or, if you are bullish on it long term, you do want to see this one kind of dig its way out. So that would be kind of the classical situation that we probably will see, I think. But is Bitcoin going to save Ethereum basically here? Because Bitcoin obviously looks a lot more strong. I do think so. It's just going to be weaker. It's just going to be weaker over time. We do see that this base is being formed as a rejection of the bearish control zone on the 5-day RSI. And so, I'm more inclined to say that this one does probably retest somewhere around these lows, like 1580, 1585, maybe even as low as 1550 on a wick. Who knows what the fuck happens there? And then if you start to see, some bouncy action, you start to see, this one close up on a wick, then I'd be looking for something like this. And, longer term, it probably does hold that nicer structure. It's not going to be as strong relative to Bitcoin, most likely, or not most likely. That's the thing that I feel most confident about. Monthly, it's fucking ugly. It's a chart only a mother could love right here. No, not necessarily. There's certainly more worse charts out there in the crypto world, like significantly worse charts, but it's just not doing anything of significant interest right here. So I've been getting a lot of requests to do a video on Ethereum. The reason why I haven't done it is just because, it's been playing out our long-term analysis for a while now. I'm just generally looking for it to continue on with that. There's not really too much else to update on this one, honestly. We can go through stochastic momentum just to see where the pivots are, just out of curiosity, like blind curiosity here. And let's see, again, the 5-day kind of similar to the Bitcoin pairing. You know, it's coming off of these these critical lows over here. We do see a nice trend line regression coming in from, well, actually we don't. That's not even really in there. But will remain to the upside as long as Ethereum's above 1585. So theoretically here, or not theoretically, like quite literally, in this next 5-day spread, we could see Ethereum come down to 1585, basically, you know, test this long-term trend line. Right here, bounce from there, momentum still remains to the upside, and I think that's probably what does happen. Weekly, we need to close above 1643 to actually flip it back onto the upside. Right now is technically down, and then of course when we go to the very high term timeframes like the monthly, it is actually still to the upside as long as Ethereum's above 1464. But it's going to take a very strong Bitcoin to continue to pull this one back up. Bitcoin's going to put the whole market in its backpack, it looks like. Or maybe not. I mean, maybe we get some like 2017 where Bitcoin rallies up and most altcoins are just kind of holding on sideways for the most part versus USD. And then, you know, just during the last couple months of the run, we do see them kind of catch up. You know, these sort of things are questions that are fun to mull over, but I don't really give a fuck about, to be honest with you. So fair enough. Anyways, yeah, you know, again, just kind of going over Ethereum. Again, Ethereum Bitcoin still looking at that downside, probably to mid 5 million Satoshis. Very likely to bounce there. Maybe reversal, probably not, but at least a nice healthy bounce. And then Ethereum USD. That one's a little bit more tricky. I do think that this one probably spikes somewhere into the 1580s early this week. And then if you see it start to bounce, or if you see some bouncy behavior, that would be a good sign that, yeah, it is actually going to respect this long-term trend line here and try to actually, you know, dig its way sideways and up. But that still implied, you know, a lot more of sideways activity. In fact, this LARP line would be very unreasonable as far as what that would look like. You know, it looks something like that, blah, 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 and then maybe, well, even that's unrealistic, but you get what I mean. You know, it would spend its time most likely, something like that. I do think it's kind of best case scenario. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off on this particular video. Again, I love my beautiful statistics over here, and I think the daily HPDR gets this one incredibly well. So basically, in the short term, as long as it's below basically last week's high, hard to love to the upside. But I'm not necessarily looking for this one to break down fully. If it does start to break below 1550, then yeah, big fucking problems. Big problems. Humongous, huge, you know, probably down to low 14. But yeah, we'll come back to that one if and when it does become relevant yet again. I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Monday.